Mornings in Seattle all look the same. Wet pavement, the smell of coffee drifting from a Starbucks down the street, the hum of traffic on I-5. Our little house set in a quiet neighborhood, manicured lawns, copy-paste houses, the kind of suburb that sells you on stability, the kind of place where nothing is supposed to go wrong. I was up before Emily, like always. She never rolled out of bed before 9. By then, I'd already had my first cup of coffee and opened up my work laptop. Married 5 years, together for almost 7. I knew all her habits. The way she'd leave her empty mug in the sink without rinsing it, the way her phone alarm would go off 3 times before she finally got up, then she'd silence it and toss the phone back on the nightstand, just for it to light up again with notifications a few minutes later. Marriage turns those little things into background noise. Background noise becomes your life. That morning, I sat at the kitchen table, watching rain streak down the glass while the radio mumbled some soft rock station. Just another Wednesday. Nothing out of the ordinary. But something in me already felt off. I couldn't name it. It was like mold under the floorboards, invisible, but you can smell it if you pay attention. Emily came downstairs around 9, pajamas, messy hair, that permanent morning scowl that meant, don't talk to me until I've had coffee. I didn't. I just poured her a mug and slid it across the counter. Thanks, she muttered, and disappeared into the living room with her phone glued to her hand. Yeah, the phone. I always joked it was her second husband. She lived through that screen. Friends, work, random gossip. I never checked it. I used to be proud of that. Trust, right? That's what healthy marriages are built on. Or at least that's what all the idiots on Reddit say. I thought I was one of them. But that morning, I realized her phone wasn't just a distraction anymore. It was a wall. She could sit across from me on the couch, but she wasn't really there. Just fingers scrolling, eyes lit up by blue light, the occasional half-assed when I said something. By noon, I wrapped up some work emails and decided to run to Safeway for groceries. I drove through the drizzle, radio on, and felt like I was in one of those sad indie films. The camera pans out, the soundtrack is Radiohead or something, and the audience knows this guy's life is about to fall apart. He just doesn't know it yet. I didn't know her dad was going to call me that later that night. I didn't know that phone call would be the crack that split everything open. But deep down I felt it. Even in the grocery store, under those ugly fluorescent lights, I felt like I was standing on a fault line. When I got home, Emily looked at me, but not really at me, more like through me. And I ignored it, the way you ignore a creak in the floorboards you don't want to deal with. We ate dinner in silence. I had pasta, she picked at her salad. We talked about the rain like strangers waiting at a bus stop. 2 people who once promised forever, reduced to small talk about weather. If you'd asked me then if I was happy, I would have said, I guess so. Because happiness in marriage isn't measured by joy. It's measured by the absence of pain. And pain, well, it was coming. It was already in the room, just waiting for the right time to show its face. The call came in around 8 in the evening. I was on the couch with my laptop, pretending to finish up some work emails while Emily sat next to me, glued to her phone, scrolling through Instagram like she was hypnotized. The TV was on in the background, playing some reality show about people flipping houses in Florida. Everything about the scene felt painfully ordinary. Too ordinary. And then my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Tom, her dad. Tom never called, ever. He was the kind of guy who sent 2-word texts, if that. Happy birthday. We'll be there Sunday. Or sometimes just call me. But a phone call from him? That was different. I answered immediately. Hey, Tom? He Michael? His voice was rough, tired, like a man who hadn't slept in a while. You home right now? Yeah, Emily's here too. What's going on? Silence. Just long enough to make me nervous. I thought for a second he was about to tell me Mary, his wife, was in the hospital again. She'd been having heart problems for years. But the words that came next felt like someone had just shifted the ground under my feet. We need to talk. Just you and me. I froze. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Emily glance at me. She was still pretending to be on her phone, but I could feel the tension radiating off her. Okay, I said slowly. I can swing by tomorrow after work. No, Tom cut me off sharply. Tonight, now, if possible. That was not a request. That was the tone of a man who'd made up his mind. All right, I finally said. I'll be there in 20. He hung up without another word. Emily looked up, her voice just a little too quick. What did he want? I let the silence hang for a moment before I answered. He said he needs to talk. To me. I emphasized the last part. There was something in her eyes. A flicker. Panic? Annoyance? She covered it almost instantly with a little shrug. Maybe Mom had another episode. You know how dramatic Dad gets. I didn't argue. But I didn't believe her either. Something in me already knew this wasn't about Mary. Tom's house was 20 minutes away, tucked in one of those quiet suburban streets with old oak trees leaning over the road. It had been raining, and the pavement shined under the streetlights. He opened the door before I even knocked, like he'd been waiting. He looked 10 years older than the last time I'd seen him. Come in. I stepped inside. The house smelled like coffee and wood polish. He led me to the dining room. On the table was a black folder, thick, heavy-looking. Sit down, Tom said, lowering himself across from me. His voice was flat. I don't know how else to do this, so I'm just going to show you. He opened the folder. Photographs. Printed. Who even prints photos anymore? But there they were, laid out in neat rows. The first one. Emily. At a restaurant. Not with me. Sitting too close to some guy in a button-down. Her hand on his knee. My stomach dropped. Tom. My voice cracked. She's been seeing him, he said steady, like a doctor giving a diagnosis. I hired someone to follow her. I've been watching her lie to you, Michael. I couldn't keep my mouth shut any longer. I stared at the picture like an idiot. My brain felt like static. How long? I finally managed. 6 months, maybe longer. He exhaled slowly. I tried talking to her. She brushed me off. I can't stand by and let you live in the dark. The next photo was worse. Emily in her car, leaning across the console, kissing him. Another, the two of them walking into a hotel. The shots were grainy, but there was no mistaking it. And the strangest part, I didn't feel rage. I didn't want to flip the table or punch a wall. There was no fire, no explosion. Just emptiness. Like I'd stepped out of my body and was watching this happen to someone else. Thank you, I said. My voice didn't even sound like mine. Tom studied me, waiting for some kind of outburst. When none came, he nodded slowly. You're a good man, Michael. You don't deserve this shit. I stood up. The folder stayed on the table. He didn't offer it to me, and I didn't ask. Does Emily know you're showing me this? He hesitated. No. She should hear it from you. I nodded once, walked to the door. The air outside was damp and smelled like cut grass. I got in my car and just sat there staring through the windshield for nothing for 10 long minutes. When I finally drove home, the house looked exactly the same as when I left. Emily was on the couch, phone in hand, TV droning in the background. She looked up, eyes searching mine. Well? I couldn't even fake it. Not now, I said quietly. And I went upstairs, without another word. The house was quiet when I came back down. Too quiet. Emily had muted the TV. She was sitting there, legs crossed, holding her phone but not looking at it. The glow from the lamp made her face look sharper, almost theatrical, like she'd been rehearsing for this moment. So, she said carefully, what did my dad tell you? Her voice was calm, too calm. The kind of calm that only comes when someone already knows what's coming. I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. For a moment, I just stared at her. The silence stretched. She shifted in her seat, impatient. "Well?" she pressed. I let out a slow breath. He showed me. Her lips parted just slightly. She tried to play dumb. "Showed you what?" "Don't." My voice came out sharper than I intended. "Don't insult me with that." For the first time that night, I saw it. The flicker of panic she'd been hiding. She bit her lip, glanced down, then forced a laugh. "So he hired someone, huh? Figures. My dad's always been controlling." "That's your defense?" I asked. "Not that it didn't happen, just that it was your dad's fault?" Her jaw tightened. She set the phone on the coffee table and leaned back, arms folded, a posture of defiance. "You don't understand," she said finally. "Then explain it to me." Her eyes met mine, cold, steady. "I wasn't happy, Michael. You're a good man, but I felt trapped, like my life was already over at 28. Work, bills, the same damn routine. He made me feel alive again." I laughed, a bitter sound that didn't even feel like it came from me. Alive. That's what we're calling it. She flinched, just a little, but she didn't back down. "You think I wanted it to come out like this? I was going to tell you, eventually." "Eventually," I repeated. "After how many more hotel rooms, how many more lies about late nights at the office?" Her silence was the only answer. The worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was how rehearsed she seemed. Like she'd had this speech ready for weeks, like she knew it would all collapse sooner or later, and she was almost relieved it was finally happening. I ran a hand over my face. My skin felt tight, like it barely fit. "Emily, we're done." The words landed in the air with a weight I hadn't expected. Final. Heavy. She blinked, and for the first time I saw real fear in her eyes. Not guilt, not shame, fear. "Just like that?" she whispered. "Just like that." I turned toward the stairs. Behind me, her voice rose, desperate now. "You're really going to throw this all away? Over one mistake?" I stopped mid-step, my hands curled into fists. I didn't turn around. One mistake doesn't last 6 months. One mistake doesn't check into a hotel under a fake name. Silence. I climbed the rest of the stairs, shut the bedroom door, and locked it. Downstairs, I could hear the faint sound of her crying, or maybe she just wanted me to think she was. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling and realized something strange. I wasn't broken. I wasn't shattered. I was free. The morning started with the familiar sound of the coffee maker bubbling to life. Normally, that smell of fresh coffee grounded me, gave me some kind of comfort. Today, it didn't. Today, it just filled the kitchen that suddenly felt too empty, too sterile. Last night, it cut through every last shred of denial. There was no going back. Emily had made her choice, and I'd finally stopped lying to myself. Now it was time to do the one thing I'd been putting off. Put it down in black and white. Not for her, not even for me, for the record, for the people who needed to know. I opened a blank email. My fingers hovered over the keys, heavy like they'd been dipped in lead. Then I started typing, each word falling like gavel. "Emily cheated on me. We're getting divorced. I'll send you the evidence in a separate email." No drama, no begging, no anger. Just the truth, plain and sharp, like broken glass. I read it back a few times. It didn't even sound like me. It sounded like some stranger, cold, detached, done. But it was me. It was my marriage, my life, reduced to a couple of sentences. The folder was already sitting on my desktop. Photos, screenshots, copies of text threads. Proof. I never thought I'd be the guy who had to collect evidence against the woman he married, the woman he once swore forever to. But here I was. And in a way, this really was a kind of death. The death of a marriage. The death of trust. I attached the file. My hand froze over the mouse for a second. My stomach twisted up like a fist. Hitting send meant this was real. It meant everything we'd built was over. Click. The email was gone. The room was silent, except for the low hum of the coffee machine. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I could breathe again. The email was gone, but the silence in the house felt heavier, not lighter. Like the walls themselves had soaked up every word I'd written and were now pressing down on me with the weight of it. The phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up. Jonathan, Emily's dad. I froze for a second, then picked it up. "Hello?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Michael." Jonathan's voice sounded rough, tired. "I just got your email. Is this true?" I closed my eyes. 1,000 ways to answer ran through my head, but they all boiled down to the same thing. Yeah, it's true. She cheated. And it's not rumors, not some paranoid guess. I sent you the evidence. There was a long silence on the other end, then a sharp exhale. Jonathan coughed quietly. "God damn it," he muttered. "I always worried she might lose her way a little, but I thought it was just a phase. I didn't know it went this far." His words hit me in a way I didn't expect. Part of me wanted to snap back. "You're her father. You should have known. You should have stopped this." But another part of me knew better. Emily had made her choices. No one else. "I don't want a circus out of this," I said flatly. "No scandals, no mudslinging. But I'm not covering for her either." "Michael," his voice cracked. "You're a good man. You didn't deserve this." I wanted to answer, but nothing came out. In that moment, I realized Jonathan was a victim too, in his own way. His daughter had shattered not just my life, but his whole image of family, of the way he thought he'd raised her. "Thanks," was all I managed. We hung up. I sat there at the kitchen table, hands over my face. Anger, grief, a strange kind of relief. They all mixed together like waves colliding inside me. The phone buzzed again. This time, it was my mom. "Honey," her voice was shaky. "Jonathan just called me. Oh my God, is it true?" The news was moving faster than I thought. "It's true, Mom," I said quietly. "Emily cheated. We're getting divorced." "Dear Lord," she gasped. "I always thought you two were perfect together." I let out a bitter laugh. Perfect couple now sounded like the cruelest joke. There is no such thing as perfect, just people who are better at hiding the cracks. She went quiet, then asked, carefully, "Are you holding up okay?" I stared at the half-empty coffee cup, the laptop still glowing with the sent email, and realized something surprising. Yeah, I was holding up. Not because it was easy, but because there was no other choice left. "I'm holding up," I told her. "That's all I can do now." We talked for a few more minutes, and I promised to visit her on Sunday. When the call ended, the silence came back, but it wasn't the same silence anymore. It wasn't empty. It was steady, grounded. The family knew the truth now, which meant there was nothing left to hide. It took 3 days for her to reach out. 3 days of me flinching at every buzz from my phone, expecting the inevitable. And then, finally, it came. A text message. 3 words. We need to talk. I stared at it for a long time, then set the phone down. It felt less like an invitation and more like a challenge. We met at the same coffee shop where we'd once celebrated our engagement. The irony wasn't lost on me. When she walked in, my chest tightened. Same Emily. Polished, composed, gray coat buttoned neatly, hair tied back in that effortless bun. She looked almost identical to the day she said yes to me, and that made it hurt even more. She sat across from me, setting her purse down, holding her latte cup like it was some kind of anchor, the ring still on her finger. Michael. She voice was soft, tentative. Don't drag it out, I said. Just say it. She looked away, then back at me. Her eyes were rimmed red like she hadn't slept. I know you hate me right now, and maybe I deserve that, but you need to understand it wasn't just cheating. I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, really? What was it then, Emily? Some kind of spiritual yoga retreat with extra benefits? She winced. Please don't. I'm not joking. You destroyed our life. She pressed her lips together, then spoke again. I felt like I was disappearing, like I was living a life that wasn't mine. Work, house, routine. I wake up and think, I'm Michael's wife. I'm supposed to be this. I'm supposed to be that. But I didn't feel like myself anymore. Every word felt rehearsed, like she'd been practicing this speech in the mirror. And your solution was to find yourself in someone else's bed. No, she cracked, desperate. I didn't start like that. At first, it was just talking. He listened to me. He saw me as more than somebody's wife. For the first time in years, I felt alive. That cut deeper than anything, because it wasn't just about sex. She'd been looking for something she didn't find in me. You could have told me, I whispered. God damn it, Emily, you could have told me. She nodded, tears brimming. I was afraid that if I told you, you'd leave, and I didn't want to lose you. I laughed, sharp and hollow. So you picked the option where I leave anyway. Brilliant logic. She broke down crying. People in the cafe started turning their heads, but I didn't care. I know I ruined everything, she sobbed, but I never wanted it to end like this. I looked at her and realized she believed every word. To her, this was a valid excuse. To me, it was nothing. You know what hurts the most? I said quietly. I trusted you, more than anyone. She reached across the table, but I pulled my hand back. I still love you, Michael, she whispered, and I don't believe you anymore. That was the end of it. She sat there crying, and all I felt was emptiness. No anger, no hope, just the echo of something long gone. When I walked outside, the air felt colder than it should have. And I knew, without a doubt, that it was really over. I woke up to silence. Not the kind that soothes, but the kind that presses against your ears until it feels unbearable. I'd never noticed it before because there were always familiar sounds in the mornings. The shower running, the clink of her coffee mug against the counter, the faint creak of her footsteps in the hallway. Now, nothing. I lay there staring at the ceiling. The house felt like an empty shell, the kind of place where the walls know everything but can't tell anyone.
Eventually, I dragged myself to the kitchen, grabbed a mug from the cupboard, and only when I set it down did I realize I'd put it in the exact spot where her mug used to go. A stupid detail, but it hit me like a punch. I tried to pretend it was just another morning, turned on the news, sat at the table, even opened my laptop like I was about to work, but everything felt fake. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, motionless. The fridge was too neat. No forgotten slice of cake on the middle shelf, no half-open container of salad shoved into the back. Everything in order, but lifeless, like a museum. The longer I stayed inside, the heavier the emptiness became. So, I decided to go out. The day was cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your hands, even inside your pockets. Late autumn, shading into winter. I walked with no destination. People around me rushed about, holding kids' hands, chatting on their phones. Their lives moved forward. Mine was stuck in place. I caught myself envying strangers. They didn't carry my story, my weight. To them, I was just another man passing by. At the park, I sat on a bench. The trees were bare, the wind scattering dry leaves along the path. Nature itself seemed to be mirroring me. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through old messages, hundreds of them. Jokes, plans, little check-ins. It felt like they'd been written by strangers. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I almost typed something. "How are you? Are you okay?" But erased it. Two voices fought inside me, one saying, "Cut it all off," the other whispering that silence was too heavy. I stayed in the park for an hour before heading into a grocery store. Grabbed a basket, wandered the aisles, but when I reached the fruit section, I froze. Bananas. She always picked them green so they'd last longer. I stood there like an idiot, grabbed a bunch, then put them back. What was the point? She wasn't here to eat them. At checkout, I realized I'd only bought bread, milk, and coffee. Basics. My life had been reduced to survival mode. Back home, I turned on the TV. Some show was playing, characters yelling, making up, fighting again. I couldn't follow. The screen flickered, but meant nothing. When it got dark, I walked into her room. Yes, her room. That's what I called it now. Her dresses still hung in the closet, her makeup sat neatly on the vanity, her books stacked on the shelf. I touched the desk, and the faint scent of her perfume lingered. Memories crashed down on me all at once. I sat on the bed and realized something. For the first time in my life, I truly understood loneliness. Before it had just been a word. Now it was tangible, heavy. I closed my eyes and whispered, "I don't know who I am without you anymore." Silence answered. That night, I barely slept.
For days, I avoided people. Calls went unanswered, texts got short replies, if any. It was easier to disappear than to face the weight of their curiosity. But eventually the wall cracked. My closest friends, the ones I'd known since college, decided enough was enough. A message popped up in the group chat. "Friday at Mark's place. You in?" I stared at it for a long time. Go and face the questions, the sideways glances, the pity, or make up another excuse. But I realized if I kept hiding, I'd dissolve completely. So I typed back, "I'll be there." Friday came faster than I expected. Walking up to Mark's door, my chest felt tight. I knew they'd heard things, rumors, maybe even repeated them. When I stepped inside, the air shifted. Smiles too wide, eyes that darted away. I felt like a stranger in a place that used to feel like home. "Mike, hey man!" Tom was the first to greet me. His hug was firm but awkward. "Glad you came." I nodded, forced a smile.
The evening rolled on with chatter, music, laughter, but underneath it all there was a tension, a subject unspoken, circling us like smoke. For the first half hour, we stuck to safe ground. David's new project, John's vacation, a movie everyone had seen. But every time relationships or family came up, someone's eyes flicked to me, then quickly away. It couldn't last. Mark, never one to hold back, finally broke the silence. Mike, listen, man, you don't have to answer, but is it true? The room went still. The TV droned in the background, a glass clinked, and then nothing. I exhaled. Yeah, it's true. She cheated. The words scraped out of me, heavy as stone. Faces shifted. Tom pressed his lips together. John muttered a curse. Damn, I can't believe it. You guys always looked, I don't know, perfect. Exactly. Looked. The questions came. Hesitant at first, then more direct. How long? Was I going to fight for her? How are you holding up? Each question stung, but weirdly, it also freed me. I wasn't hiding anymore. The truth was out, raw and ugly, but real. I'm not holding up. I'm falling apart, just trying not to show it. Silence again. Then Tom clapped my shoulder. Listen, man, you're still one of us. Doesn't matter what happened. We've got you. Those words hit me harder than I expected. Yeah, there were pitying looks. Yeah, I saw people dodge the topic to avoid hurting me. But I also realized not everyone was gone. Some were still here. Later, the mood lightened. Jokes, sports talk, laughter. I sat with a beer, listening. Sometimes I smiled, sometimes I drifted. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe I still belonged to something beyond my own grief. When I left, Mark walked me to the door. It's rough, I know, but you'll get through. Just stick with us. I nodded. The night air was cold, but inside, something felt a little warmer. I never thought the word divorce could sound this quiet. Not like thunder crashing down, not like a gunshot at point-blank range. More like the soft, almost lazy click of a light switch. The light was there, and now it's gone. And in that darkness, you stand, squinting, waiting for your eyes to adjust, but they never do. We sat in that small courtroom where lives, marriages, and heartbreaks weren't measured in tears but in case numbers on dusty folders. The judge, an older man with a face worn out from other people's dramas, read through the papers in a monotone, like he was dictating a grocery list. Emily Johnson and Michael Johnson, marriage dissolved. And in that moment, I felt something like a fist landing square on my chest. Emily sat a little distance away in her gray blazer. She didn't cry, didn't look at me, didn't even try to catch my eyes. She just waited for it to be over so she could walk out and breathe air without my name, without my last name, without my shadow hanging over her. The irony was that I wanted the same thing. I kept trying to pin down what I was feeling. Anger? No. That had burned out a long time ago. Pain? Of course, but dulled, like an old wound that doesn't bleed anymore but still aches when the weather changes. Bitterness? Probably, but mostly there was emptiness, like opening a drawer where once you kept letters, photos, little souvenirs, and finding it all gone, the wood creaking hollow. When it was over, we walked out into the street. It was a gray, rainy day. Emily pulled up her hood and walked toward the parking lot. I went the other way. We didn't even say goodbye. And honestly, that felt brutally honest. There's nothing left to say when everything's already been said. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at the suitcase with her last things. She'd picked them up over the weekend. Those leftovers felt like museum pieces from a life that no longer existed. A mug that said "Love you more." A Christmas gift from her. The blanket we used to curl under during movies. Just objects now. No soul, no meaning. I drafted the email to her father. "Emily cheated on me. We're getting divorced. I'll send you the evidence." I rewrote it dozens of times before realizing it couldn't be clearer. Facts don't need decorations. And that's when a strange thought hit me. Maybe this was real freedom. Not a loud scandal, not a soap opera with screaming and tears, but this, dry, quiet, almost indifferent. You lose a person, but along with them you lose the right to be betrayed, the duty to keep pretending everything is fine. I stepped out onto the balcony, lit a cigarette, and watched the street. People rushed by, cars passed, traffic lights flickered. The world went on like nothing happened. And there was the darkest irony of all. Your personal apocalypse doesn't matter to anyone else. At that moment, I realized what was ahead wasn't happiness, wasn't joy, wasn't some bright new chapter. It was silence. And maybe that's what I had been looking for all along.